They already lost, before the first move, before the first word. Before they even knew they were in a fight, you had already won. But how? There's a strategy more powerful than brute strength, more lethal than any sword. It's silent, invisible, and almost no one uses it. This isn't about war. It's about your relationships, your career, your influence. Sun Tzu, the ancient master of strategy, revealed a principle so psychologically dominant that it allows you to win before your opponent even realizes the game has begun. And yet, it's the principle most people overlook because it requires no action. Just precision. Today you'll uncover it. And once you do, nothing will ever feel like a fair fight again. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like you had already lost before saying a word? Like the tone was set, the game rigged, the power already leaning away from you? It happens in negotiations, in relationships, even in silence between two people who haven't spoken in weeks. That feeling, that invisible imbalance, is not an accident. It was designed. Someone prepared for the moment before you even saw it coming. And in doing so, they won without lifting a finger. Most people prepare during the battle. They react. They defend. They explain. But Sun Tzu believed the outcome should be decided long before the first clash. He said, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. In other words, most people show up hoping to gain power. The wise show up already holding it. And that difference? It changes everything. To understand how to win before the battle begins, you must understand one thing. Battles are not fought on the battlefield. They are fought in preparation. Sun Tzu's teachings weren't about fighting harder, but about ensuring you never need to fight at all. He believed true power comes from positioning, not action. That means gathering information before speaking, observing before reacting, and influencing before confronting. The battlefield isn't where you win. It's where your opponent realizes they've already lost. Sun Tzu emphasized the importance of deception, not as dishonesty, but as a strategic veil. When you appear weak, unprepared, or indifferent, your opponent lets their guard down. They underestimate you. They overextend. They reveal their hand. Meanwhile, you've already mapped the terrain, understood their desires, and anticipated their moves. You didn't fight them. You let them collapse under the illusion that they were winning. The mistake most people make is thinking conflict is a moment. It's not, it's a timeline. And whoever controls the first phase controls the outcome. This is why great negotiators remain calm while the other side speaks. Why powerful people seem indifferent while others over-explain. It's not arrogance. It's strategy. They already won when they chose how the conversation would begin. To win before the battle, you must become a master of invisible influence. You must build alliances before conflict. Plant doubt in the minds of your enemies without confrontation. And you must train yourself to control tempo, because whoever controls the timing controls the mind. Most people rush, winners wait, and strike when everything is already tilted in their favor. This is not about manipulation. It's about preparation so complete that resistance becomes irrelevant. You don't overpower your opponent. You make them walk directly into defeat willingly, unknowingly, and irreversibly. Sun Tzu's philosophy was not born in a vacuum of theory. It came from life or death realities. In ancient China, generals didn't get second chances. A misstep meant not just defeat, but the fall of empires. That's why his work, The Art of War, is not just a military manual, it's a psychological blueprint. He wasn't teaching how to fight better. He was teaching how to never need to fight at all. One of his core principles is that the highest form of victory is one where the enemy surrenders without combat. This isn't passive, it's the peak of strategy. To achieve it, Sun Tzu urged deep knowledge. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. That's not about confidence, it's about data, insight, and mental preparation so sharp the opponent becomes predictable. And here's the nuance most people miss. Sun Tzu didn't believe in reacting. He believed in shaping. He taught that environments, people, and outcomes could be shaped long before they became visible. That's why his generals moved silently, set traps in advance, and studied psychology as deeply as geography. The real war wasn't physical, it was perceptual. It was won in the minds of those who thought they stood a chance. This concept echoes in the way leaders, politicians, and CEOs operate even today. The best don't just show up prepared, they engineer the environment so that their preparation becomes invisible. The moment someone feels like the result is inevitable, the battle is already over. Not because of brute force, but because one side understood how to control the narrative before it was ever spoken. Sun Tzu's overlooked genius lies in this paradox. True strength is invisible until it's too late to resist. That's why his teachings endure. Not because they help you win arguments or beat your rivals, but because they give you the power to render resistance meaningless long before it ever begins. Now imagine this. You walk into a meeting and without speaking, you've already dictated how it ends. Not because you're powerful, but because you've made yourself appear powerless until the very moment when it matters most. The others underestimate you. They speak freely. They reveal plans, weaknesses, fears. And by the time they realize the balance has shifted, it's too late. You didn't overpower them. You let them defeat themselves. That's Sun Tzu's ghost moving through you. But what if this principle could be applied in your daily life, not just in war or business? What if you could influence relationships, interviews, negotiations, and conflicts simply by how you show up? Not with more volume, but with less. Not by taking control, but by giving the illusion that you're not even interested. What happens when people start to chase you, defend against you, or fear disappointing you, without you ever raising your voice? Here's a chilling truth. The one who appears to care less often controls the dynamic. But caring less is not the same as being careless. Sun Tzu knew that emotional detachment wasn't apathy, it was discipline. You don't show them your plan. You show them a version of yourself they can't predict. And unpredictability breeds hesitation. Hesitation is the seed of defeat. This raises the real question. How do you practice this principle without becoming cold or manipulative? That's where most people fail. They confuse silence with weakness and detachment with indifference. But the secret is balance, projecting enough presence to be noticed, but not enough to be read. Enough strength to be felt, but not enough to be feared. You become a mirror to others' projections until they destroy themselves trying to define you. And maybe the most dangerous part of all, once you learn to win before the battle, you start to see how many people are unconsciously starting fights they've already lost. They walk into situations thinking they have leverage, but they've already exposed their intentions. Sun Tzu's principle doesn't just teach you to win. It teaches you to see who's already losing without knowing it. Think about how many times you felt powerless, not because someone attacked you, but because they simply didn't respond. No explanation, no defense, just silence. And somehow, that silence said more than any confrontation could. It made you question yourself, replay your actions, feel uncertain. That's the hidden power of psychological gravity. When you don't chase, you become the one who is chased. Sun Tzu understood that emotions are weapons, both yours and theirs. A single reaction can shift the momentum of a negotiation, a relationship, or a rivalry. The one who can regulate their emotional state becomes untouchable. Because while others are busy trying to be heard, you're shaping the narrative they'll feel without knowing why. Your calm presence becomes heavy. They feel it, even when you say nothing. This is the psychology behind great leaders and manipulators alike. They don't dominate by force. They dominate by being centered when others are shaken. That's why charisma without control collapses under pressure. But silence backed by inner clarity pulls people in like gravity. You don't need to convince them. You let their own thoughts convince themselves. They lean toward you for validation, for approval, for surrender, and you never even asked. Now ask yourself, how much energy have you wasted trying to prove, explain, or defend yourself in situations that were already unwinnable, because you were fighting during the battle instead of winning before it? This is the psychological trap Sun Tzu helps you escape. He shifts the battlefield from the outer world to the inner one. And once you control the inside, the outside obeys. In the end, this principle rewires how you see conflict. You stop asking, how can I win this? And start asking, what can I prepare that makes winning unnecessary? You stop reacting and start positioning. You stop fighting battles and start creating outcomes. And the most dangerous part? No one will see you coming. Because the real damage was done before the first word was ever spoken. You don't need to fight to prove your strength. You only need to understand how to position yourself so that the battle becomes irrelevant. That's the overlooked brilliance of Sun Tzu's philosophy. It doesn't demand that you become louder, stronger, or more aggressive. It teaches you to become inevitable. A force that doesn't announce itself but is always felt. Most people waste energy trying to control the outcome when the real control lies in what happens before the first move. The preparation, the silence, the invisible shaping of perception. Win before the battle begins and you'll realize something terrifying. You were never meant to play by their rules. You were meant to create your own terrain. So next time someone tries to drag you into conflict, ask yourself, have I already won? Because if you've applied this principle right, you won't need to ask twice.